Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 series, Can We Save the Oakland A's? And just wanted to start things off by thanking all of our loyal viewers, all of our frequent and not so frequent commenters. Thanks for making this such an interesting thing for me to be working on. Always helpful to hear what you're thinking, what you think we've done well, what you think we could improve, and certainly have given a lot for people to chew on here in these early stages of 2028 to 2029 offseason. It's only been 10 days, or less than 10 days actually, since the offseason started, and we have a very different looking team. We've traded away a guy who came up through the A's farm system in Daryl Hernandez. Traded away a guy we signed as a free agent last year to a pretty attractive contract in Hidero Endo. Traded away a couple of guys that we picked up on the waiver wire, Samuel Zavala and Joendry Vargas. Traded away a number of players that we've traded for over the past few seasons. Starting pitcher Mike Vassell, reliever Jordan Romano, infielder Eddie Leonard, and catcher Will Banfield. And we also even traded away a couple prospects in our system in the outfielder Andy Scott and the relief pitcher Dave Weston, among others. But moving on from all of those players, as well as some others, has brought us a few interesting new players onto the team this year. Jackson Ferris, the 24-year-old left-handed starting pitcher, think he could definitely be in the competition to be our number one starter going forward. He's going to be making a lot of money in a couple years, so that is not optimal, but we will deal with that when we need to. Also added a new backup catcher in Agustin Ramirez, a new corner infielder slash outfielder slash DH in Charlie Condon, a new likely third baseman in Colt Keith, who's been the biggest acquisition, and a new corner outfielder in Chase DeLauder. So definitely have focused on trying to get this team younger and particularly trying to improve the offense. Going to be a very different looking team next season than it was this past season, and honestly, different looking team than it has been for the past several seasons. And hopefully it will pay off with more offense than we've tended to generate in previous seasons, and a pitching staff and defense that are still in the top half of the league. And a quick programming note before we start moving forward with this episode. Probably not going to have as frequent episodes over the next several days. Going to have some upcoming travel for myself for work and some other work obligations. So we've gotten pretty used to being an almost daily channel, and in some cases putting out multiple episodes of this series a day. But if you don't see me for a day or two here or there in the coming days, nothing is amiss. I haven't lost interest in the A's, and I will be back and posting again as soon as it is practicable and possible. And as we head through salary arbitration and award season towards the beginning of free agency, we found out in our last episode that our starting catcher, Drake Baldwin, won the first Gold Glove in his career. Not expecting a lot of other awards for our Oakland A's as we get through the next week or so. You never know. There can always be a surprise, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of hardware coming Oakland's way after a below average 73 and 89 season this past year. Don't really have much left to do in arbitration. We've signed the guys that we really wanted to. Still exploring potential trades of Kyle Nelson, Angel Perdomo, and Hunter Goodman, but at their ages, with the salaries that they're going to be making in arbitration, and with the limitations that all of those players have, not a ton of demand for any of them. We'll also be moving on from Ketel Marte, Clark Schmidt, Christian Walker, Colby Allard, and MJ Melendez in free agency in just a couple of weeks. And as expected, award season has been quiet for our Oakland A's. We have made one medium-term trade offer to one of the players that we picked up that we talked about. And backup catcher Agustin Ramirez has signed a deal with Oakland. Ended up being a 5-year extension worth up to $10 million. So think, given our expectation that he is a solid defensive catcher and he is a competent-ish hitter, particularly against left-handed pitching, which is where he'll be hopefully playing regularly. Happy to lock him in as a pretty reasonable amount to hopefully give us some stability behind the plate with Mr. Ramirez as well as Mr. Baldwin. And taking a look back at the awards where we didn't win anything, one of our former players, Hidero Endo, almost won American League Rookie of the Year. Max Clark outpolled him 112 to 81, beat him 13 to 12 in terms of first place votes. Clark for the Tigers hit 248, 11 homers, 60 ribbies, 14 steals, a bit above average offensively in terms of his OPS plus and WRC plus, and put up a 3.1 WAR, being a pretty solid defensive outfielder. Endo, of course, we have now traded to the Tigers, where he'll be a teammate of the guy who beat him in the race for AL Rookie of the Year. Put up some monster numbers for us with 37 homers and 87 ribbies as a rookie. Put up some monster numbers on the wrong way as well, with a league-high 252 strikeouts, hit just a $188, added up to league average offensive performance and a win above replacement level. And we will certainly, as some of you have asked us to, be checking in on Mr. Endo and seeing how he performs with Detroit going forward. And interestingly, with Endo now traded to Detroit, it looks like the Tigers have 3 of the 5 vote getters in the AL Rookie of the Year race in 2028. So maybe a good sign for the Tigers' future to have some youth in the organization, although Endo, having come over from Japan, is not necessarily the most youthful rookie you'll ever see at 29 years old. Turning to the big awards, Max Fried is now a back-to-back Cy Young Award winner, unanimous winner in the National League this year. 21-8 record, led the league in wins, innings pitched, improved his ERA from a year ago, struck out more batters than a year ago, led the league in quality start percentage and WAR for a second straight year among pitchers. So certainly a deserving Cy Young Award winner in the National League. In the AL, more of a split race. Interestingly, our Kyle Bradish finished 4th in the voting and got 2 first-place votes. That, again, is a trade that's worked out incredibly well for us. Led the league in ERA, BABIP, and WHIP. Baltimore just wanted to get him off of their books after he hadn't posted an ERA below 5.89 for 3 consecutive seasons. Probably found lightning in a bottle with him, not expecting him to be as good next year. Some of you have already suggested that perhaps we move on from him and trade him away. If someone blows me away with an offer, I will, but right now with the Orioles holding on to a good chunk of his contract, he's a pretty cost-effective resource for us. But enough about our Oakland A's. Nestor Cortez, the former Yankee, who is now a member of the Orioles, the AL Cy Young Award winner here in 2028, led the league with a 19-win and 5-loss season, over 200 strikeouts, an ERA of close to 3, and a league-best 77 FIP minus. Turning to the MVP awards, Colson Montgomery of the Chicago White Sox, your runaway winner in the AL, stops Wyatt Langford from winning a fourth consecutive MVP award. All Langford did this year was lead the league in homers, ribbies, and slugging percentage again, but he still falls short to Colson Montgomery. Led the league with a 408 on-base percentage, a OPS over 1,000, 172 WRC plus, and an 8.5 WAR, while having 38 doubles, 46 homers, and 116 ribbies for the White Sox. In the National League, your unanimous winner, Ronald Acuna Jr. of the Braves, led the league with 117 runs, 192 hits, 51 steals, while also stealing 43 bases, so a member of the 40-40 club. Also led the league in on-base percentage, OPS, and WRC+. So some monster offensive seasons again here in 2028. Our hope is with some of the additions that we've made, most notably Mr. Keith, maybe we'll have some big offensive seasons ahead of us in 2029 and beyond. And we've made it to the start of free agency. Before we take a look at the Major League Baseball free agents, we'll take a look at the international free agents entering the market. Maybe there's another Hidero Endo in the market this year. Very high level. It has not been the most impressive class. And of course, right as I say that, Juan Mendoza out of Cuba shows up on the radar. Does not bring much to the table in terms of speed or fielding ability, but still a very good influence in the clubhouse and a potentially very interesting bat. Unfortunately, the 29-year-old is looking for over $23 million a year, so likely to be out of our range. We'll still try to get an updated scouting report on Mr. Mendoza. Shortstop Hideki Arakawa out of Japan. This is a guy who we might be interested in. Only looking for $1.5 million. 27-year-old left-handed hitting shortstop, competent defensively, some decent personality traits, and a respectable-ish potential major league bat. We'll certainly go and get another scouting report from him. He's only looking for a minor league deal with a major league option at this point. Part of me just wants to get him locked up, even though I don't know a lot about him, because if it turns out he's a bust, we just don't put him on the major league team, and then we don't have to be spending any money on him. But I still want to be fiscally responsible. Wonder if he'd be willing to go for $1 million major league deal. I'll think about it. So at least we've started the discussions with Mr. Arakawa. Taking a look at the front office, and with all of those moves we made, our player payroll is down to $44 million. So we do have $22 million to spend. I don't think it's enough to be playing at the top end of the market. And you see that the salary constraints get a little trickier in 2030, and then much trickier beyond that, zooming up to about $90 million in 2031. But right now, with the way we've constructed this roster, we do have a lot of financial flexibility, and we've already got a pretty good scouting and development budget and a sufficient draft budget for where we think we're going to be. That could certainly change depending on how the draft lottery goes in a few weeks in the winter meetings. But we've got the money to be players in free agency for probably the first time ever in this playthrough. Not necessarily players at the top end of the market, but we can pursue some guys close to the top end of the market, which is going to be a interesting and unique position for us to be in. Taking a look at some of the top major league free agents, Cy Young Award winner Nestor Cortez, Logan Gilbert, Logan Webb, Gabriel Moreno, excellent catcher, another pitcher in Corbin Burns, both Cy Young winners actually in Cortez and Max Fried. Gunnar Henderson, 27-year-old shortstop, more pitchers with Castillo, Tariq Skubal, and Spencer Strider. So some really interesting pitchers on the market in particular. Take a little bit of a deeper look as far as who is actually out there position-wise. You can see the top position players, not surprisingly, are looking for more money than we can afford to spend. And it does look like Spencer Torkelson did not end up making it to the free agent list. So I guess they ended up locking him up. Let's see what kind of contract Torque got. And they just gave him a qualifying offer, and he accepted it for $18.9 million. So not a long-term commitment between the Dodgers and Torque, but he is off the market. Certainly, when we look at players like Gunnar Henderson, very good offensive player, very good speed, very good defensively, a lot of positive things about him. $30 million a year is likely out of our price range. Juan Mendoza, we'll see. We like the personality. He's kind of most likely probably a DH, but a big right-handed bat would certainly be a great asset for us. Don't think we can quite go to $23 million. Our former outfielder, Esteury Ruiz, looking for $15 million. Check in on what he has done since he moved on from us. Hit 269 both years with Kansas City, a little bit of a season after we traded him away, and then a full year last year where he once again led the AL in steals after a 1 year period where he wasn't leading the league in stolen bases. Still only a 93 WRC plus 2.7 WAR, so was one of the better seasons of his career, arguably the best season of his career. I don't see us being willing to pay $15 million to reunite with him at this point. So probably will be playing in the middle part of the market. Some other former players of ours, O'Neal Cruz, Eloy Jimenez, who many of you have wanted me to chase after for years at this point. Jesus Sanchez back on the market. There's definitely guys in this mid-range who could give us a bat that would definitely help us. I tend to think I probably just wait things out, and someone ends up on the market, and instead of looking for 12, 14, 16 million, they're looking for 6 or 8 or 10 million 3 or 4 months from now. That might be the right approach with the batters. Turning to the big pitchers on the market this year, and as we talked about, there is a lot of talent at the very high end of the market. Not anyone that we could afford. We could afford the likes of Felix Bautista. Don't know that $9 million for a reliever is a luxury that the A's can afford to pay, but of all these 3.5-star and higher players, you can see they're all, with the exception of Bautista, generally looking for over $20 million a year, with the exceptions of Jacob deGrom and Logan Webb, who are both coming off of significant injuries. So again, with the pitchers, we might be playing more in the middle range of the free agent market rather than the higher end of the range. Certainly seems like there are some pitchers here who could help us. Unfortunately, they're mostly relievers looking for pretty decent money. Would love it if there was kind of a starter that we could slot in, but there's kind of a big drop-off. You can see there's not a 3-star overall starter on the market this year. You're kind of at the high end with the guys who are certainly above average major leaguers, and then there's a lot of guys that are likely a bit above replacement level to a bit below replacement level who happen to be on the market. And guys like that are typically on the market most years. So I don't necessarily see a player that we're going to be obsessed with bringing on board on this list. Clearly, if a starting pitcher lingers on the market and the prices come down, that might be an area for us to pursue. So I think it's going to be a patient approach for us in free agency this year. Again, if there is a opportunity that emerges, would love to take advantage of it, but I tend to think it's going to be something that's going to emerge on free agency in 2 or 3 or 4 months, not immediately. So maybe we'll continue to peruse the trade market. Don't necessarily feel like there's any other deals that we're close to or that make tons of sense. I feel like we've spent a lot of time perusing the trade market over the last few days of real time, the last month and a half of game time, and the opportunities of potential impact players that we can actually afford. I feel like we have hit that opportunity set pretty hard with the 4 trades that we have made already this offseason. And before we spend too much time thinking about free agency, because as I noted, that's likely going to be something we spend more time thinking about in January, February, and March, and kind of go bargain shopping for the best of the players that nobody else wanted, as the island of misfit toys Oakland A's continue trying to build their roster. Have spent a little time over the past few weeks making minor league offers, and we've kind of focused a lot on players in their early 20s. We've tried to build our A and high A teams largely through the guys that we've drafted and picked up in the DSL. And as we talked about in previous episodes, the results for 3 of our teams, AAA, AA, and DSL, were very good to excellent this past season. But the results for 3 other teams, our Arizona rookie team, Class A, and High A, were bad to brutally poor. So we focused a bit over the last few weeks on just bringing guys in their late teens and early to mid-20s into the organization. They've been assigned to both of our rookie league teams and both of our A-ball teams, depending on their level of experience and their age. Basically just want to increase the level of competition at all those teams. We're still going to force start the top prospects at all of the levels throughout the organization, but hopefully we'll have a better caliber of players for some of those teams, so the guys who are not prospects are a little bit more competitive. Clearly we'll be paring the numbers on some of these teams down significantly as we get closer to the season, but we're several months away from needing to worry about that. We'll also take a quick look at the development lab almost a month into the off-season. Unfortunately, only 3 of our guys are on track. Now, importantly, 2 of our most expensive young prospect pitchers, Duncan Marston, who we took 4th overall in 2024, and Jaheim Pennyman, who we just took 2nd overall this past year, are both on track with their efforts to improve control. And Drake Baldwin is on track trying to improve the quality of his contact. But everybody else, unfortunately, is frustrated or struggling at this point. But still 2 to 3 months for things to change. We'll see how things go. As we talked about the previous episode, we invested a bit more heavily in prospects this year, taking up 6 of the 8 spots in our development lab here in the 2028 to 2029 offseason. And you can see we've got some offers still outstanding for minor league contracts. We've also offered or are considering offering some players, basically just to hopefully drive fan interest a little bit. Not going to do anything right now. We're just kind of reviewing the market, kind of figuring how low can we go in terms of the quality player that we bring on board to potentially juice fan interest a bit. Position player wise, Chris Bryant is extremely popular. That's really the only reason to bring him on board. I do feel like we could use another right-handed bat as far as a corner outfielder slash DH slash corner infielder. And looking at his ratings, I can argue to myself that he might still be a useful bat against left-handed pitching. But he's wrecked physically. He's going to be 37 before the season started. It's really just paying him for his extreme popularity and hopefully some fans wanting to see the one-time wonder kid in these late stages of his career. Kind of doing a similar thought among the pitchers who are available. I think this move is a bit more defensible when we just think about what we need on this team and the quality of the player. But Patrick Sandoval, left-handed pitcher, is very popular, only looking for $1.9 million. We could use another left-handed arm in the bullpen this year. Moved on from Misters Nelson and Perdomo, who were with us as lefties out of the pen a year ago. So we're basically just down to Jesus Soto and possibly Bennett Souza as lefties in the pen to go with the new addition Jackson Ferris as our lefty starter. So Sandoval, I can argue a little more that he would be a pretty useful player for us. And the fact that he is very popular maybe gives us a very small boost to fan interest, helps us sell a few more tickets. So he's another one that we're looking at. We only have, for whatever reason, high scouting accuracy on him. 32-year-old player who's been in the majors for, I think, around a decade, right? Yeah, closing in on 9 years. Probably not going to learn too much new about him, but maybe when we get that scouting report back on him, we'll be inclined to try to bring Sandoval on board. The other thing about Sandoval is that he does have 55 stamina and he does have a 5-pitch arsenal. So he could potentially start for us in a pinch. And as I kind of think about that, certainly makes me a little more inclined to maybe just get an offer out to him since there are some benefits. We'll give him a real low offer right now just to let him know that we're kind of interested. I don't think he's going to go for this. It's half of what he's looking for, and we're not guaranteeing him a spot in the rotation. He's insulted, but he's not so insulted that we won't be able to talk with him again. So we'll wait for that scouting report on Sandoval. Bryant, I think, is more a guy who, if we can sign him in a couple of months for $1 million, $1.5 million, give him a guaranteed major league contract just to try to get the boost to fan interest from bringing him on board, and we'll play that game to the extent we can without hopefully using up too much of this money that we have available for free agents, because I would love to perhaps bring on some popular pitchers or some popular batters down the line who are better players than the ones that we're talking about right now. But clearly we're going to need the prices of some of these guys to come down significantly before they would work with the finances that we are dealing with here in Oakland. And we've simmed ahead several days, and we do have a scouting report back on Sandoval. Very high scouting accuracy now. Kind of is what we thought he is, a major league average-ish lefty pitcher, but he can pitch out of the bullpen. He can start for us in a pinch. He is, as we noted, very popular, which isn't going to move the needle incredibly, but could help us on the margins. Over the course of his major league career, he's been pretty much a league average pitcher. At this point, he's not much more effective against lefties than he is against righties. But he is a little bit better against lefties than righties, and there's certainly going to be some batters out there who are left-handed who struggle a bit more against lefties, and there'll be some righties who do that as well, although it's not as typical. So I think he could have a role for us. So we're going to go ahead and make him an offer. Says he would do $1.84 million. We're not going to get quite to that level, but we don't want to insult him. 1.7 million, no guaranteed role. Wants 1.76, and he wants a guaranteed spot in the starting rotation. We're not going to do that for you. We'll give you 1.75 million. We're not going to guarantee you a spot. You can tell he's not too pleased with us right now. I don't think it's the end of the world if we get him on board. It is almost a move more just to fill a hole we have with a left-handed pitcher, which we will do at some point this offseason. But we've still got the Rule 5 ahead of us. We've got the trade market ahead of us. We still have free agency where prices may come down and we may be able to get somebody better than him. So as much as I'd like to add the popular player, if we upset him enough that he cuts off negotiations here, I'm not going to lose any sleep about it. And he's not in the right mood for negotiations, so the Patrick Sandoval dalliance may end almost as quickly as it began. And the other guy who I'm sure some of you noticed, who is extremely popular and also happens to be wrecked physically, is Byron Buxton. Another right-handed hitter, which we could use. I don't mind if we're just getting a platoon guy against lefties, and he still has really good home run power against lefties, good gap power, acceptable eye, not necessarily the greatest contact hitter in the world, but he is still a competent-ish defensive center fielder, given that we have had issues with Luis Lara in center field. I don't hate the idea of bringing Buxton on board. I don't know that I want to spend $4 million on him as a potential platoon player. So we're going to once again just engage with him, let him know that if things don't work out, we'd like to talk to him. I don't think he's going to go for $2.5 million a year without a promised role. But this is a guy who's still been a pretty productive player. 2 years ago, he led the AL with 46 homers and 161 ribbies. And even last year, he had 30 homers and 101 ribbies, 104 WRC plus, although he was barely above replacement level. Looks like his zone rating and his defensive efficiency in center field are not necessarily quite as good as I might expect for someone with a 65 range last year. But there's some things to at least consider about him. Again, I don't think he's going to go for this deal, but he is extremely popular, and he could help fill a little bit of a hole on our team. Definitely not interested in that kind of money. Wants to be promised a role in the starting lineup. So we'll just kind of sit on things here with him, as well as Chris Bryant. I think we'll be able to get some very or extremely popular players on this team as the offseason moves along, but we're not going to chase anything quite yet. So as we sit here on December 4th, it's definitely a unique situation for us. I feel like on paper our team should be better than it was last season already, And we still have the potential to increase our payroll by almost 50% over the next couple of months while maintaining pretty sound scouting and development budgets for next year. So I think it's really just a matter of the free agent market coming to us and perhaps being patient. We'll still continue to explore the trade market. I just don't think we've got the assets to bring another potential impact player or borderline impact player on board. So I think the free agent market may be our primary source of improving this team. If you've got thoughts on what we should do in free agency based on some of the players that we've looked at or just some of the other players who are up on the screens, always helpful for me to hear those. I think in our next episode, which will probably be the last one for a couple of days, my goal is to get through the Rule 5 draft and the winter meetings, and then to also kind of set up international amateur free agency, and then leave things in the hand of the viewers for a day or two about which way you recommend that we potentially go in the IAFA period this year. Looks like there's going to be some pretty interesting options, and always helpful for me to hear what viewers are thinking, even though I often end up disappointing the majority of people when I make my decisions in those situations. And with that, we will call it an episode. Until the next time, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.